Hi, this is Tina Greenbaum, and welcome to another episode of Under the Hood. I'm a high performance coach, a psychotherapist, and the CEO of Mastery Under Pressure, who is the sponsor of this show. So I want to welcome everybody here to our almost 2-year anniversary of Under the Hood. And Under the Hood was started when I did my TEDx talk, and I had a phrase in there that patterns that are created in childhood impact us as grown-ups. And I have taken that phrase and made it into this podcast and interviewed some fabulous leaders, some of which are my former guests are on the call as well. But we have a wonderful, wonderful guest today. And the whole purpose of this is leadership, as you know, and John, I know you're going to speak to this. Today is a really pretty rough business. You have pressures from everywhere. And all these external pressures that are coming at you requires the internal instrument to be in high gear all the time. Not an easy task. So we're going to start with I'm going to tell you a little bit about John. He's got a very long resume, but I'm going to read a part of it because he's been really an incredible leader for a good part of his entire career. So currently, he's the managing director with the Overture Group, working with clients on solving staffing and recruiting needs. He has over 25 years of experience providing executive search, interim staffing, human resources management, career transition services that have helped to guide organizations and individuals to meet their goals and objectives. He started 30 years ago in the financial industry, and after serving that role for 8 years, he decided to make a career transition into executive recruiting. And I'm going to stop here because you're going to get to see what a people person John is and how that recruiting has become a big part of his life and his personality, right? So I usually ask pretty much the same questions because they bring out the kind of answers that we're looking for in the show to really kind of show the human side of being a leader. A lot of people have us kind of up on a pedestal. Oh, life is really, fabulous and great, which it is, but you didn't get there just like that, right?
Nope, it was a journey.
Okay, so my first question is, can you tell us a little bit about your background, your family of origin, and the kinds of patterns and behaviors that you kind of developed as a result of your upbringing?
Yeah. Well, Tina, first off, thanks for having me. I greatly appreciate it and am excited to be here. And, my upbringing was one of instability. Growing up, I came and I will use the words, I won't use the word broken home, but I came from a home of divorced parents. And my parents were not highly educated. They did the best that they could at the time. I was really raised by a very strong female, my mother. My mother was very influential early on in my life, but she made some good choices and some bad choices. But early on, I was the man of the house. 6 years old. I think that's where leadership, it was trial by fire. That's where I really learned most of my leadership skills early on and just propelled from there. But it's because I had to take that man of the house position on as a kid. So, firstborn, have a younger brother who has some slight special needs. So when you put that on top of not only having a divorced family, but a brother with special needs, now I not only become the leader, but I become the protector.
Wow.
Growing up. So I wouldn't change it for the world, how I grew up, because that's how I learned, right? That's what's brought me to who I am today. And I think that was the premise of how I kind of raised, through the ranks and through my life. And, I've had influential people and mentors and great people come in and out of my life that I've been able to, really say that they've impacted me. But I also grew up as an outlet playing sports. I'm a sports guy, right? At an early age. I think that's molded the leader and the person I am as well.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question, John. I'm going to interrupt
Yeah.
for a second, but when you say the leader, what are
Yeah.
the qualities? Again,
Yeah.
you could be even more specific. What are the qualities that you actually developed and were able to use,
One quality when I talk about leadership is accountability, right? Very early on, not only did I have to be accountable to myself, but I had to be accountable for others. So it always made me feel a responsibility to provide, to support, to protect, right? And I don't call it a burden. I call it, maybe when I was younger, may have called it a burden, but now I call it, it was an opportunity for me to grow and learn.
there you go.
Right.
So you've been able to turn some of these
Yes.
experiences into what we say in my business, it's all grist for the mill. It's always something that we can flip around. And let me ask you this. So those were the qualities that actually have stayed with you and taken you all the way
Yeah.
through. What were some of the other kind of patterns that you created that kind of got in your way? That it's
Yeah.
the point you had to look at and say, this is not working.
Yeah. And I will just say certain relationships with family members, where I had to set bounds and boundaries in order for me to move forward as a person and personally grow. There was some negativity in my life, some naysayers, and I looked at them as roadblocks. I always try to look at the positives and moving forward to achieve those results. I don't think I am where I am because I'm the smartest person in the room, but I'll tell you, one other quality is persistence.
There you go.
Right? And
We call it the P word in my family.
Yes. I've got to where I am by being persistent, in showing up. And to me, that was very important. And when somebody tells me I can't do,
Right.
I will take a step back, process, and I will do.
So were you always like this, John, or was there ever a time where it kind of you had to learn some of these skills because you didn't learn them from your family, right? I mean, most of us, in terms of these really advanced skills of leadership, we don't necessarily learn. We may have role models, but where did the struggles come in, where you just had to kind of look at and say, this does not work?
A lot of the struggles came in trying to achieve results, but putting a lot of stress and pressure on myself over the years. Early on, it was always, to get things done, it was a lot of pressure, a lot of concern, a lot of worry. And I think once I kind of let that go, I kind of got to the next level because I wasn't as paralyzed, if that makes sense.
It makes perfectly good sense. It makes perfect
Right.
sense.
And
Analysis by paralysis or paralysis.
And I use that all the time when your mind's racing and you're analyzing and you're not moving forward, right? Because we're worried about the outcome. But being that I also had that other trait of persistence, I think that helped me get through it as well.
Right. So the combination, so a lot of the things that we talk about in leadership, I talk about, and I know that you have spent a lot of time, is really doing the inner work to become aware, right, of what's going on in this racing head. The first level of personal growth, honestly, and transformation is to become aware. So again, it has become a habit for you. I can hear it. I can feel it. that it is ingrained in you at this point. Is that true?
Oh, absolutely. I've done a lot of self-reflection, a lot of therapy, a lot of coaching. I've been coached. But I'm always looking in for that self-improvement, self-help. How do I improve as a person? How do I become a better person? Right. And by me becoming a better person, I think people around me become better.
There
And
you
I want to surround myself with those folks.
go.
Right? And they help me become a better person.
Right. So who do you think, could you name like one person that really, really, really inspired you?
Um,
Carry with them with you kind of all the time.
I I think there's a couple people. I don't think there's just one. I won't name names, but um, like I said, early on playing sports, one coach made a very big impact on me, who was not only a fatherly figure for us as young men, but also was real with us. Then my first role out of college, and my my leader gave me an opportunity to get into leadership and management early on, and she really helped build the foundation for me. And then most recently, another gentleman who I've known for 25 years, who I've tried to emulate and stay close to, especially in business. So I've had some great mentors, but at different phases of my life.
Right. And probably when you needed different skills, right? Because as you move up the ladder, right? Speak
That's
to
a
it.
that's a great point, because when I look back and I reflect in my childhood up into my college days, the early, business career starting out to where I am, absolutely, it's the evolution, right? Of how we get, it's the journey to where we are today.
Right. So let me ask you another question. People say that we learn most from situations that we consider failures. I kind of know where you're going to go with this, but can you share with us one of the biggest lessons that you learned with starting to look like a failure, but didn't work out as you imagined, and you've been able to kind of massage it and turn it into the roses?
And I'm probably going to go back about 14 years ago to where I worked for a firm who was an international firm, finding out that my skills and my skill set were no longer needed. And I was always a planner, trying to always look ahead to what was next. And when I was relieved of that position, I thought I had everything planned out to the best of my abilities, and it turned out I kind of fell down a little to get back up. But I wouldn't change that for the world, because that experience of falling down, pulling myself up,
Right.
learning about myself, and then putting the work in. And it's personal work. And you have to have the courage, you have to have the energy, and you have to have the will to want to put in the work to move forward. And I did.
Could you be my poster child, please?
I and some of it may be cliche, but there's this much difference of being ordinary and extraordinary, and that's just a little extra effort. And that's all it takes to achieve what you want, and it's the stick-to-itiveness to do that.
Right. So John, you bring up so many wonderful things that for you that may feel like this is just kind of a natural evolution, right, of who you are.
Yeah.
But you really are a wonderful role model, because what you were talking about is, number one, there is an evolution.
Yeah.
there is a requirement when things don't go your way but most importantly, in the position that you're in right now, and the reason that I do this podcast is because I want people to see, number one, the humanness of what it takes to get where you are, but you're also the kind of person that people want to work for you because you have done your work. And the world is just such a crazy place right now. It's just absolutely positively nuts. You know, we're living in so many things that are out of our control and the high pressures that we have, right? What control do we have other than ourselves?
Our attitude and how we approach things. Yes.
Right. So I'm hoping that as people are listening, you know, that are inspired, because your job now, and I know kind of where you are in your organization, is to inspire the next generation. Could you
To me, yes, that's very, very important, right? And the one thing that I've learned over the past, you know, from that time when I was down, is I want to help as many people as I can. To me, helping people is very, very important, because the more people you help, the more I grow personal and professionally, right? But I also feel helping that next generation of leader is extremely important. And I never turn down a request and I lead here in the Midwest. Not only do I have my executive search and compensation consulting firm that I'm a partner in, but I head up one of the premier career management groups here in the Midwest of executives. We have CEOs, CFOs, and HR executives in this group, and we help them manage their careers. And I've done that for the past 15 years. But I never, ever deny a request from a member or somebody in my network that will come to me and ask me, will you talk to my son or daughter? Or will you talk to this college student who's looking for direction, or this person who's early on in their career? Because I feel it is our responsibility as the current generation of leaders to make sure that next generation of leaders is armed and prepared. Like I learned through other people's experiences. I want them to learn through my experiences, and I want to help them grow personally and professionally. And by being there to do that, into showing up and being there for that next generation, I feel I'm doing something good. But I also preach it too. I tell people all the time, it's our responsibility to bring that next generation of leaders up.
So let me ask you another question.
The personal crusade, by the way.
I hear you. I'm with you. We're on the same crusade. Actually.
Yeah.
Right, on the same crusade. But as you know, again, a lot of people that I've worked with in very, very high places and very busy and have made many sacrifices in their lives for their careers.
Yeah.
Right? What kind of sacrifices have you had to make?
That's a very, very good question. Growing up the way I did in a split household, I always said to myself, I want to have a family, and that family, I will sacrifice in certain areas if I have to make sure I'm raising and supporting and providing for my family. Just like a lot of other professionals, late nights, right? Weekend work. But I always tried. I didn't miss a lot, I can tell you that right now. And I did that consciously because I didn't have that growing up. So maybe I went overboard, but I made sure that it was a priority in my life.
Right. So again, what you're demonstrating is that you can have a work life and a family life And it requires choices.
It does. And you have to know what you value. And me personally, that's what I valued. And I would never work for somebody who didn't value that. Maybe that's why I own my own business, because I couldn't find that. And I've met many leaders who didn't share that same philosophy. And I know I could never have worked for them because of that.
Right. So again, you use your own values to make choices. Didn't bitch and moan, perhaps, about
A little
bit,
Yeah.
but you also had enough confidence to move on. Sometimes
Yes.
your own will, sometimes somebody else kind of, made the way for you, but pushed you a little. But again, I'm bringing all this stuff out because these are themes that we're looking for in our leaders, and we need you, and we need people like you and all the wonderful people that are on this call, because I know that you have attracted really great people as well.
But I make it a priority to surround myself with good people first. And I make a conscious effort to do that. Did I always do that? No. But I learned how to do it. And I made sure when I'm around people that are like-minded, we can do great things. And we have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have a couple minutes left and we have a wonderful group here. I'm wondering if anybody has a question for John or a comment that you would like to share. And you can, Sheila, you can bring everybody back on. Here we go. I can do this. Here we go. Anybody have a comment, question? Hi, Yor.
I have a question. Thank you, John. Thank you very much. And also Tina. John, what metrics do you use for yourself to see that you are improving on a regular basis in different areas? And it has to be tangible and it has to be measurable.
Yeah.
So we all know that in areas of like leadership that is not very measurable, everybody feels that he or she is a good leader already. What metrics can be used?
Well, I do goal setting. I do personal goal setting and business goal setting, right? Personal development and professional development. And I have metrics that I put in place in terms of goals every year, right? On the business side, there's numbers that need to be achieved, but in order to get those numbers, I need to develop and or improve upon X amount of relationships. And I need to meet X amount of new people, right? On the personal side, I have three passions in life. I always, when people ask, it's first is family, second's my business, and the third is a leadership group that I started. And I use those metrics because of personally, I want to continue to bring good people into my life. And so those are the metrics. I try to bring in, and here's a metric, and it's just new relationships. I try to bring in 2 to 3 new relationships into my life a month. I'm not saying that those relationships will get very deep. They may be a little bit wider, but some of them will get deep. But that's how I learn. That's how I grow. I've learned and grow through people's experiences. So those are the metrics that I use professionally and personally. Does that answer that question?
Very clearly.
Yes.
Anybody else? Ralph, go ahead.
Okay, John. So we've talked about a lot of different stuff, but here's a nutshell. You're an executive recruiter. So if I'm looking for executives and I'm looking for somebody to help me recruit the right people, why should I use you?
That's a great question. Because I get to know my people, my candidates. I get to know my clients. I get to know my candidates. And just like in my personal life, I'm trying to match my value systems up with the people I surround myself with. I try to do that same thing with my clients. So I get to know them on a deep basis, who they are, what is important to my clients, what is their culture, what is their mission. But I get to know I work with a lot of privately held and mid-sized businesses. That's my specialization. I get to know my clients a little bit deeper, right? And it's through interaction. And then I can match that up well with the candidates that I source, recruit, and then introduce to my clients. But it's about trying to do the best job of getting to know them and then matching, if that makes sense. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great other tools out there that we use, right? Some assessment tools, some interviewing tools. But there's also a thing, getting to know somebody, you could help match that through there. Because that's how, a lot of times you could have you'll have great experience and it looks good on the paper, but it comes down to the most important thing, and that's cultural fit. And that's what we really look for. And one of my mentors told me a long time ago, you get hired for what you know, but you'll get fired for who you are. And so that's why I take a lot of stock in getting to know my clients and candidates.
And I
So
do
how
have
do
it
you go out? I'm sorry.
very
So how
quickly.
do you go out and recruit possible clients?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
All right. Okay, for instance, okay, I'm doing something that no one else in the world is doing to my knowledge. And that's
Yeah.
creating a very powerboat race all the way around the world. It's
Yeah.
focused on save our oceans. Okay. And you can get anybody involved in sports, but if they're not in love with the ocean, I don't want them.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I was to ask you to recruit certain people for my company, okay, how would you go about?
You know what, Ralph, I'm going to ask you to take this question offline, okay? Because we're out of time. Actually,
Okay.
It's a really good question, and I think that we could have John here for a really, really long time.
Actually, I'm late for another meeting. I just realized. Okay. When you brought that
But thank you. Yeah, and everybody will be able to get in touch with John, through this recording. So, because we are out of time, and I do want to honor everybody's time, it's just a 30-minute, which goes very, very, very quickly. And I know, John, that you have so much to share and so much wisdom to share with people that and everybody's nodding their head, yes. So I want to thank you for being who you are, for doing the work, for sharing yourself. In relationship to Ralph's question, you saying, how do you get to know people? Your warmth and your just who you are kind of comes through. One of the things that I do know, that in addition to all the challenges that are being faced in our external world, people want to know people who are authentic.
Yes.
And don't hide behind this gatekeeper and that gatekeeper. And I think that is one of the greatest challenges of leadership today, really, because from your generation, my generation, you had a lot of people that could hide you.
Mm-hmm.
Now this younger generation wants to know you. They want to know you. They want you to be transparent. They want you to know about their families and your goals and your passions and all of these things. So I think leadership today is under a tremendous amount of pressure, which comes back to my company of Mastery Under Pressure. How do you bring that real, authentic, grounded self to this crazy world and be a model for, the people that you serve? So I want to thank you for all the work that you have done and that you continue to do, and for being our guest today. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity. First off, it's a lot of fun, but we need more dialogue. around leadership. We really do. And again, that's my passion for helping those next generation of leaders. But thank you for, allowing me to be here today. I greatly appreciate it.
My pleasure. And so this is our next session is in May, right? May, where I have Gary McGrath, who is also a leadership person coming from the military is his background, and he's an extraordinary human being as well with great ideas. And this will continue, and this dialogue will continue. So thank you all for coming. Again, this is sponsored by Mastering Under Pressure. Anybody wants to get in touch with me, the kinds of things that we talked about today are my ballpark, in terms of the internal work that people do that then bring you into the world as the great leader that you are. So thank you again for coming, every single one of you. I appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.